slightly more stratified tip is to write the whole thing down. Like, you have your text, print it out on a sheet of paper. Don't memorize it from the sheet of paper. Don't memorize it from your lines. Write it down. Transcribe it. Because again, the relationship between your hand, your arm, your muscle memory, your eyes, were perceiving a lot of information, and your brain processes and digests the whole information and kind of attaches meaning and rhythm to it. It's gonna work way quicker once you write everything down. I know, if you don't have a lot of time and you have huge chunks of text, then this whole procedure might take too long, right? If you just have 2 days to memorize it. But let's say you have a very complicated section of the monologue, or of the scene, or of the presentation you have to make, whether it's complicated words or it's just hard for you to remember, or it's just complicated in itself by the expressions that you have to use. Writing it down will be a tremendous help to internalize it, memorize it, and also make it yours. Again, because that's a very intimate relationship that I have with myself, with my hand, with my brain, with my eyes. I'm observing, perceiving what my hand is writing, and that's the text from the author. So it's not that abstract text written on a sheet of paper anymore. No, I'm writing it with my own writing. I'm transcribing it, I'm transforming it. That transition from one sheet of paper to the other sheet of paper, which is now my sheet of paper, makes the whole process magical. And you can't imagine, like, taking just that hour of time of transcribing it, how faster you will memorize the lines instead of just having this distant relationship to somebody else's words. Make it yours also by transcribing it, by writing it down. And if you want, you can also write it backwards or read it backwards by flipping the meanings, the words, the combinations, and how you place them on the paper. You can play and manipulate the words later on way easier, improvise way easier, and again, you're internalizing the whole thing way quicker. So that's a tremendous boost. Even if it feels like slowing the process down, eventually that little time that you have invest more will turn out to be a greater facilitator to have a way quicker compression into your head, and way deeper also. It becomes way more meaningful once you write it down, because that's a magical combination. It's also great for your brain. It calms down your nerves. It's a great way to kind of control your breathing patterns. There's so many advantages to writing stuff down, to writing your thoughts down, but especially to writing down the lines that you have to memorize. Try it until the ambulance comes. Then there is this thing about repeating the lines. Like Michael Caine says in his book, Acting and Film, which I can only recommend to read. I'm still reading it. I kind of read it like 100 times. It's one of the greatest books ever on acting. He says to repeat the lines loud, many times, 1,000 times. You can do that. Repeat them as many times as you can, but try to watch out, because if your brain gets over fatigued by just the sheer repetition, if it's just a blind, senseless repetition, it won't get close to you. Repeat it with emphasis, with passion, with the right stimulus. If you just repeat it for the sake of repeating it, actually it won't help. You need to repeat it consciously, with passion, with the right instinct, with the right impression. Now that we have laid down the fundamentals, now that we've, building up that cathedral, make sure that every repetition, every brick that you put into that column fits perfectly. Otherwise, the whole building becomes shaky. Just repeating it for the sake of repeating it doesn't really help. You need to repeat it consciously, with great emphasis. Accentuate, exaggerate, make it great, make it big, make it large. Then you can diminish, you can turn down the volume later. But first, repeat it. And again, if it's a big, huge text, if it's a lot of words, a lot of lines, then again, pick out the sections that you're not feeling totally secure with, that are still shaky, that you have trouble memorizing with, and repeat those sections a couple of times. Like, when I say a couple of times, I don't mean like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, maybe not 1,000 times like Michael Caine said, but let's say 50 times will be a great way, like, to kind of make sure that this whole thing gets in here and in there. Be obnoxious, be obsessed about your words. They are your tools, your instruments, your weapons, your arsenal. If you don't repeat them, if you don't have every word, every line internalized perfectly, you're not learning the right stuff. You're not fully prepared. Your axe isn't sharp enough. Like the man, the legend, the myth himself, Abraham Lincoln, once said, if you give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, I use the first 4 hours to sharpen my axe. Such a great example of what I really mean. Like, repeat this process over and over again. And if it's boring to you, again, put on some music. Some classical music, some great hip hop beats, some techno music, whatever you like. Put some music underneath it. If you want to step up your game for real, then use the music that is corresponding to the emotional anchor of the section of the text, of the monologue, of the sales presentation that you have to memorize. Does that make sense? Let's say your first section is all about love and passion, so you put on some upbeat music that kind of fits perfectly to the emotional anchor, and now you memorize the lines over and over and over and over again with the right rhythm, the right music in the background, and now you have that perfect sound with that part, with that section of the text of the scene. And then you go and you have your transition to the next section of the scene, which is kind of more of a sad part of the scene, maybe more of a melancholic part, more of a contemplating part. You put the right music to it. Again, you're matching the music, you're matching the rhythm with what you want to learn, with the emotional anchor of that section. Again, that will help you tremendously to kind of put the lines into your head, even if you have like big amounts of text that you have to memorize and to learn. Even if it's for just the next upcoming audition that is in a couple of hours, this will help you. Put some earbuds on, put the right music on, attach the right emotional anchor to it, small section with the right rhythm, and now you have the right driving force, the right fuel, that is the music that will help you to kind of nail and put the words in the exact position so they make perfectly sense when you pronounce them and you come across as believable, as authentic, as a genuine, powerful character.